Welcome to our first ever Impact GB podcast, which we're recording to share with you for World Menopause Day. World Menopause Day happens every 18th of October to raise awareness of the menopause and the support options available for improving health and well-being. Even if you personally will never experience it, the life of someone you know will invariably be impacted by the menopause at some point. Now, our focus for today's podcast will be nutrition and the vital role that it plays in our health and well-being. This is something we're regularly asked about for content by our Impact members and allies in GB, and we love keeping the conversation going. In the spirit of supporting overall well-being for our colleagues, we'll be talking about nutrition both for the menopause and generally today. So listen along and you might hear something that helps you or someone you know or love. I'll be your host for today. My name's Anna Rogers and I'm an HR business partner in supply chain and operations, as well as a proud member of the steering committee for Impact in GB. I'm joined by Ruth O'Sullivan, our in-house nutritionist, and Zoe Gill, one of our amazing development chefs. I've been really looking forward to this chat. What better way to kick off a rainy Monday morning here in the UK than by chatting to two women in our business whose roles are really fascinating and whose impact is inspirational. I've also been really looking forward to potentially simplifying some of the conflicting information in the wellness space, so particularly from social media, and hearing about some delicious ways we can all nourish our bodies. We asked members for their questions ahead of the conversation today and hope you find it a helpful one to listen to. We're recording from Cisco GB, but we'll be sharing the podcast globally for the benefit of colleagues across Cisco, and I'd like to thank Ruth and Zoe for agreeing to share their knowledge so widely. We'll be leaving our cameras on, as unfortunately we can't physically be in the same room today for a coffee and a chat, but don't feel that you have to sit and watch, just listen along as you normally would with any other podcast. If you have any feedback on the conversation or suggestions for the future, including a clever name for the podcast series that we haven't managed, feel free to leave us a comment if you're watching from the dish or drop us an email at impactgb@cisco.com. So without further ado, we will get into the chat. So before we kick off into the questions, it would just be great, Ruth and Zoe, if you could introduce yourselves for the benefit of the audience. So just who you are, your role, how long you've been here would be brilliant.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Ruth O'Sullivan. I'm a registered nutritionist with a specialism in food, and I look after nutrition for Cisco GB. I've been with Cisco for nearly 18 months, but this is my second time here. I worked here until about 2019 before I left to join another business, and really enjoy nutrition, really passionate about health and wellness. So pleased to be talking to everybody today.
Morning, I'm Zoe Gill, Sector Development Chef, predominantly leading within education. So food is an absolute passion, particularly in that sector of how we can nurture our young children and embed the solid grounding through their journey. I've been with the business 21 years, so that was type of last week, which is an incredible period of time. But like Ruth and Anna, both really pleased to be with everybody today.
Thank you, Zoe. So the first question, and just something we want to kick off talking about today, I am personally really fascinated by the answers to these because I have definitely wasted some of my hard-earned cash on supplements and fads that overpromise and underdeliver, it's safe to say. I'm sure other people listening can relate to that as well. So one of the questions that we had that really stood out from our members when we asked them before the chat today was around all this conflicting information that we see on social media. So what's fact? What's fiction? Who should we trust? Who should we not? I've got a couple of specific questions in here that I'll kick off with and would love to know the answers to, but also if you've got anything else to add just in terms of all the conflicting information we see on social media, it'd be really great to hear from both of you. So the first question, and I feel like a certain TV show in the UK may have recently kickstarted this, but we're seeing a lot in social media at the moment about mushroom supplements and particularly lion's mane supplements. So any ideas on fact v fiction, good v bad?
Yeah, so it's really difficult with nutrition to say yes or no or fact or fiction. I feel like I always have to sort of give a bit more context around it. But for anybody who doesn't know about lion's mane, it is like a mushroom or fungi. We've got very limited research on it at the minute, so it's really not that. We're not able to say whether it's of much benefit. However, if you Google it, if you look at it on social media, you'll find stuff on immune health and brain function and alertness, that kind of thing. But we don't have any of that confirmed with robust research. And because of that, we don't actually know if there's any negative effects either. So at the minute, I would just say, watch this space.
Fair enough. And something else that I'm seeing particularly at the moment is around the importance of protein. So frankly, if I'm not getting 30 grams of protein in my breakfast, I feel like I'm failing a little bit there.
Yeah.
Do we need to eat loads
Uh,
of protein? Is that necessary?
Oh God, this has been so much recently. Every time I go onto TikTok or onto Instagram, they're telling you that if you have 2 eggs for breakfast, that's not enough protein. And as a woman, you need, like you say, to be having 20, 30 grams with every meal. But um, mainly as a nation in the UK, protein is one of the nutrients that we actually get enough of. We're not typically deficient in it. It is important for muscle maintenance and muscle growth, but there just seems to be this huge trend at the minute about consuming massive quantities of it. And I think what you have to remember is a lot of the people that are recommending these huge quantities, they're fitness experts rather than nutrition experts. So that is one to bear in mind. And they're probably coming at it from an aesthetics perspective as opposed to what you need for your own health. So I don't think we do need these huge quantities of protein at every meal. Whether it's sustainable long term is another thing as well. But yeah, just bear that in mind where you get that information from.
Great point. Thanks, Ruth. And another one, again, I personally see a lot of this in social media at the moment around supplements and green powders. So whether that's matcha, there's lots of different versions, but should we be adding
Yeah.
green powders, or I suppose any powdered supplement to our diet?
I mean, I would say no. They're really expensive and they're really highly processed as well. I had a look at one last week and they came with a claim about it containing 90 different vitamins and minerals that was going to support brain health and gut health and immunity and help you sleep and give you loads of energy. But I mean, to me, I would save you money because this packet of greens was £50 and you only got 30 servings out of it. And if you spent £50 on green vegetables, you'd get a lot more than 30 servings. So to me, I would save your money and just eat vegetables and use them to have them with your meals. It would give you the same impact and save you an awful lot of money.
Makes a lot of
There is
sense.
just simply that element of eating fresh fruit and fresh vegetables and getting plenty of exercise so that you shouldn't need those supplements. And it
Yeah.
is just about eating the right type of food.
Yeah, I think people like to be told that you need to have this, or you need to do this, or you need to remove this, or you need to eat lots of something. People aren't so interested in just the balance message, which is a shame because I feel like people are then taken advantage of from a finance perspective. So
Mhm.
yeah, just bring it back to basics with food.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So not that kind of either or mentality. And I think the amount with which you see the same message repeated on social media, it genuinely does. It makes you feel like you're kind of getting something wrong from a nutrition perspective, and you're questioning, if I have two
Yeah,
eggs for breakfast, is that really
is
not
that
enough?
enough?
And I think, all of our lives are so busy, and obviously the cost of living is increasing. I don't think any of us need to feel like we're failing at our diet. So I think the keep it simple message makes a lot of sense. Actually,
Yeah.
question for you, Zoe, on that around that kind of fresh fruit and vegetables piece, just debunking kind of fresh versus frozen even versus tinned. I'm assuming fresh is better than the others, but
It's all beneficial. So
okay.
if you are looking for convenience and you want to eliminate wastage, frozen is perfect. So if you want to make
Mm-hmm.
breakfast smoothies, frozen fruit is perfect. We are all guilty of purchasing fruit and those overripe bananas that sit in the fruit bowl and everybody
Mm-hmm.
turns their noses up. And I've got many a recipe that I can share with you how to keep those overripe bananas and rather than putting them in the bin. So frozen fruit, do you know what? Everybody has that bag of frozen peas in the freezer, don't they? And nobody
Mm-hmm.
snubs a pea. So, look at other options, whether or not it's free flow spinach that you can add to a curry or a risotto or into a vegetable based smoothie.
Yeah.
There's so much more options out there, and canned as well, you know, whether or not it's a humble baked bean, you know, it's about beans, pulses and lentils. So even cooked canned lentils are really good. You know, canned fruit, if you want to whip up a quick dessert, you know, canned apple into a crumble or a pie is perfect. So, you know, never dismiss the other options. And I think everybody's so absorbed in everything having to be fresh that there's nothing wrong with the canned and the frozen option.
Yeah, in the frozen, because frozen food is picked and then frozen within a few hours of being picked, the nutrients are then retained. So you can actually have more vitamins in, say, a frozen carrot than you would a fresh carrot, because by the time you buy your fresh carrot, it could be a couple of weeks old. Or a frozen carrot would be maybe 2 or 3 hours old. So yeah, don't dismiss frozen. Also, it helps people eat seasonally, because with some fruit and veg, they're only in season for a certain period of time. So that's when they're harvested. So your peas in the freezer will probably be picked within a 1 or 2 week window when they're at the best in terms of quality and flavour and taste. So yeah, it can help you eat seasonally.
That is great to know. I definitely did not know that about the nutrients. I am definitely an enormous fan of frozen spinach. It has transformed my cooking, and you can sneak so many vegetables into a meal and nobody even knows about it. And you haven't
Perfect.
got to de-stalk it all. It is absolutely fantastic. And it's a great point, actually, Zoe, about the bananas. I think, how many banana breads did we all make during lockdown? I would imagine the
Yeah.
consumption of banana bread has gone down dramatically.
But there's just even a quick breakfast smoothie, you know, with some banana and add a little bit of honey or maple syrup to it if you need to, or some canned apple or some frozen strawberries. It's just, I think it's just about habit, routine, and making some simple swaps. And very much through menopause and perimenopause, you need all of those extra vitamins and minerals. So it is just taking the time to think, how can I make myself feel better? And I have a saying that absolutely grates on my daughter, who is 17, so you can well imagine the look of horror when I say it. But I say, happy food and happy mood.
Yeah.
You're going to feel so much better if you eat the right type of food. If you live off of takeaways, convenience, you know, you're going to feel terrible. So yeah, happy food and happy mood.
I'm definitely stealing that. I love that. On the canned fruit particularly, I'm making an assumption here that to get it canned in juice is better than syrup. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, because your juice would also count towards your 5 a day. Syrup
Yeah.
wouldn't. Depends where you buy it from. Sometimes the syrups do have less sugar than natural fruit juice, but you can't just assume that everybody would do that. So yeah, if you use the fruit juice, it would be better.
Makes sense. Okay.
Mm.
Which actually leads us on to the final question that we had from members around kind of fact versus fiction. Is fruit bad for you?
No, that would be a nice simple one. No, there's no such thing as good foods, bad foods. Everything can be included as part of a balanced diet. Sugar has been demonized in the last few years. Every now and again, a nutrient is demonized. It's been fat, protein's been sort of promoted as the good nutrient, but sugar's been demonized. And because fruit contains sugar, I think that's why there's this myth that it's bad for you. So fruit contains loads of different vitamins, minerals. It's got fiber, which
I was
none of
going to
us in the UK eat
say
enough of.
fibre.
Yeah, it's full of fiber. It contains water, so it's going to contribute towards your fluid intake, keep you hydrated. So no, definitely not bad for you.
Is there any such thing as too much fruit?
I guess there's too much of anything, and it all comes down to balance. So we need to have at least 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. If you were eating 20 portions of fruit, that's probably not particularly balanced. You might have an upset tummy, probably too much. But yeah, it would be very difficult, I guess, to eat too much fruit and veg. It just needs to be part of every meal. Include it in some of your snacks as well, and yeah, just include it as part of a balanced overall approach to food.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we have got a question later as well around the balance and the macros as well, which has come up a lot in terms of tracking. So we'll get a bit more into that. So going back to the conversation about protein, so there's also a lot of discussion at the moment around eating less meat, and that is partly, I think, for health reasons, partly for kind of moral reasons, partly for cost reasons, because meat is more expensive. So what are good vegetarian or vegan sources of protein if people are looking to eat less meat?
So
Who's the
this
question?
is a really hot topic, isn't it? Everybody is talking about sort of meat reduction, including more plants. And that's because it stems from the fact that we've got more people on the planet than ever before. And by 2050, we think there'll be about 10 billion people in the world. So if we continue to eat in the same ways we do now, there basically just won't be enough food for everyone. So meat consumption has increased drastically over the last 50 years. And rearing animals for food generates a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, and that has an impact on climate change. So we're being encouraged to eat less meat, more plants, because it's good for your health, but also better for the planet as well. And there's so many different plant sources of protein. I'm sure Zoe's got loads of recipes that she can share with everybody, but you've got beans, peas, lentils, but also people forget about some of your staple foods, wholemeal bread, wholemeal pasta,
Okay.
rice. They're really good sources of protein, and they're often dismissed because it's not going to give you 30 grams of protein in a slice of bread, but they do all contribute to your overall intake. And also these plant proteins give you fiber, they give you vitamins, minerals, so they're really nutrient dense foods. And I know, Zoe, you've done loads of work with the plant forward message, haven't you, for Cisco JB?
Absolutely. So plant forward, excuse the pun, stemmed from a challenge we had within the business about how to mitigate cost, particularly in the education sector. We don't want to compromise on quality of recipes. We don't want to compromise on quality of ingredients. So what we wanted to do, and it was a bit of a light bulb moment, it's not rocket science at the end of the day. It's really quite simple. So just reduce the amount of meat. So many of our recipes now, we will reduce the meat quantity by 25%, and then just add beans, pulses and lentils. So as an example, we've created a beef and bean smoky for our primary and secondary schools. And in essence, just down to the titling of the message, it really is a chili con carne. So we've just, like I say, reduced the British beef meats that we use. And that's really something that we're all passionate about, is British and Red Tractor accreditation. And then we've added a humble baked bean. So every school kitchen and many other kitchens within our sectors use the humble baked bean. They're in everybody's kitchen cupboards at home. Kids will eat them rather than a kidney bean, but it is about gradual steps. And for us as adults to understand we can still enjoy dinner, we've just reduced the meat and add some beans, pulses and lentils. So it ticks the box from sustainability, ticks the box around pricing, so it helps us to reduce the cost. But again, like I say, we haven't then compromised on what the overall dish is. So we've got lots of examples like that and recipes that we'll share after today.
Brilliant, thank you. I really like the sound of that, actually. And that sounds like a really nice meal that you could make as a family. And like you say, it meets the kids' needs, meets parents' needs, and everyone's a winner, aren't they?
And then any leftovers you can then mix into a jacket potato topper or serve as a cascadillo or an enchilada. So all the recipes that we type of work on and develop as a team, it's also about how can we minimise food waste. So we've spoken about cost. It's also how can you be creative with what you might cook on Monday, but how can you be really clever and utilise any leftovers for Tuesday?
That's a great idea. It's that whole kind of cook once, eat twice thought process, isn't it? Because again, everyone's got busy lives, and it saves you having to there's always that question, isn't it, as an adult? Everyone's least favourite question is, what should we have for dinner tonight? What should we have for lunch tomorrow? I look forward to that one. Thanks, Zoe. So moving on to caffeine. So we talked a little bit about supplements and different kind of conflicting views. Black coffee, I think, has long been a Marmite choice within the health and wellness space, and we hear a lot about how much caffeine we should or shouldn't be drinking, and how it, can or can't be good for you. And a particular member question we had was around conflicting views on drinking black coffee. So hearing that it can help with metabolism, but on the flip side of that, it can also cause cellulite. So any knowledge or information on that, and also on the back of it, kind of any recommendations on foods that do burn fat or drinks that do burn fat?
So I think the links to coffee and metabolism come from the fact that it contains caffeine, and caffeine is a stimulant, so it can make you feel more alert and less tired. So studies have shown that coffee can impact your metabolism, but it's not going to happen in a significant way. It's not like you drink a cup of coffee and then, you've lost 2 or 3 pounds. It doesn't really work like that. So it's definitely not something you would use as a weight loss tool. I've never heard of the link between coffee and cellulite, though. That's a new one for me. I think the biggest risk factor for having cellulite is being a woman. And that's because we typically have more body fat than men. So we'll look like we'd have more problems with skin and fat around areas like thighs, hips, bums. That's typically where women store fat. And basically cellulite is where you've got 3 layers. You've got your skin, then you've got your body fat, and then you've got your muscle. So to keep your skin attached to your muscle, there's these little fibers that go through and sort of anchor it down. And if the fibers are quite tight, then they would pull down and cause like a little dimple. And that's all that cellulite is. It's just where your skin is anchored to your muscles. It's not an indication of healthiness or unhealthiness. It doesn't show, it's not related to illness or anything like that. And I just feel like we've got to normalize it. You can be a healthy weight, you can have low body fat, and you can still have cellulite. It's not a bad thing. It's just a dimple, an effect of basically where your body's trying to anchor your skin to your muscles.
Which I would argue is very important, as a very important job
Exactly.
for it to do.
We want it to do that.
Maybe we need to reframe it. Cellulite has a very important job in our body. It's actually doing some very
Exactly. Yeah,
important
just
stuff. Yeah, I
normalize
did not
it.
know that.
Yeah, just normalize it.
Okay. And what's your thoughts, Ruth, on the whole kind of fat burning drink, food? Like, is that a thing, or is that a myth?
I don't think we can measure that effect on
No.
everybody is so different. Everybody's bodies are so different. Us three on this podcast, we could all eat the same diet but still look completely different because our bodies are unique to us, and it's a lot of it is down to genetics. So to me, it just goes back to basics. You just need balanced diet. There isn't any foods that are better than others. We need a little bit of everything to get different nutrients. And no, I wouldn't pay any attention to claims about fat burning when it comes to food or drinks.
Okay. And I suppose kind of linked to that, the prevalence of tracking of macros, of steps, of exercise has obviously massively increased within the last few years, with everybody wearing wearable tech and having much more kind of access to that information, which can be good. And, in the one sense, I very much use my watch to track how many steps I've done and make sure that I'm kind of keeping a healthy amount in. But on the flip side, it can also get you in a mindset, can't it, about tracking and what you're doing and whether that's right or wrong, kind of as we've been having the conversation. So we have had quite a few questions from members around tracking and not being sure what the best macro ratio is for, so for example, carbs, fat, protein in any meal. So again, like we were saying about protein earlier, is there a kind of general rule of thumb? Does it depend on your goal? Does it depend on your kind of body type, as you were just saying? Really, it'd just be good to get a bit of guidance on that.
Yeah, no worries. So just for anybody who isn't aware, the word macro is short for macronutrients, and macronutrients are the nutrients that we need in large quantities. Macro means big, and these are the nutrients that give us energy. So macronutrients are basically carbohydrates, protein, and fat. We've also got micronutrients, which you need in much smaller amounts, and they're basically just vitamins and minerals. So some apps can calculate how much you need of each of these macronutrients, and it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. Do you sit at your desk all day? Do you run marathons? Are you trying to gain weight? Do you want to lose weight? It all depends what it is that you want to achieve. Also depends on you as a person, depends on your age, your sex, that kind of thing. So it really does vary person to person and what your goals are. But for most people, if you think of people as just being average, typical people that might do a little bit of activity, probably desk-based, then all you need to really do is make sure that you've got foods from each of the main food groups, and you try to eat them in the proportions that are advised with the UK Eat Well Guide, which is our UK healthy eating model. So roughly a third of your diet should be fruit and veg, roughly a third should come from carbohydrate, less than a third from protein and dairy foods, and a little bit of oils and fats. So if you kind of eat in those proportions, you'd probably get the right macronutrients for your body and for you as an individual. If you want to track them through apps, that is absolutely fine. You can do that. Most of them have some sort of calculation built in where you tell it your height, your weight, your age, and what you're trying to achieve, and it'll work it out for you. But for me, it just takes the joy out of food and eating. If you're tracking everything that you eat, and most people under track, you always forget to put something in, and therefore what the nutrients that it's telling that you're eating, are they 100% accurate? Probably not. But yeah, it depends on people and goals. If you've got a real strict goal you want to achieve, then it could probably help you do that. But for your average person, just eat a balanced diet in balanced proportions.
Do you not think that with type of overcomplicated life, with every type of app, particularly around health, fitness, well-being, and I think to your point, Ruth, it's just about going back to basics of eating well-balanced, well-cooked, well-prepared foods, because like you say, otherwise everything is determined about what those figures are on your app. I've never used an app for anything like that. It's about that element of making sure that you get the right level of exercise for you as a person. And as we've already said, everybody's metabolism and everybody's body is different. Do what is right for you. And like I say, I haven't got the time to be tracking apps about how many calories I've eaten. I know that I've had, healthy breakfast, healthy lunch, healthy dinner. And you know what, if I want an extra biscuit to dunk my cup of tea at 8:30 in the evening, happy days.
Go for it. Yeah. Some people like the structure of it. Some people, it really works for them. But yeah, it just depends on you as an individual. It's not going to do you any harm by tracking them. But it can lead to sort of an unhealthy relationship with food. You then become a little bit obsessed about what you're eating, or can't eat that because I'm going to go over calories for the day, or I haven't got enough protein. So just be careful and be mindful that if it's making you feel that way, it's probably not something that you should continue with.
Yeah, it's absolutely that balance, isn't it? It's having, and you can get those plates, can't you, that divide, so you can have the third and third, as you were describing, Ruth, and kind of sometimes with portion sizes, it's hard to visualize what that should look like. So things like that can really help as well. And everyone is different in that sense, aren't they, in terms of what works for them and what doesn't. But it's about being in that healthy mindset, isn't it? And eating for health. And it's also really difficult. We've had a kind of bit of a golden thread throughout the conversation of social media, but you might look at celebrities and think that they just wake up looking like that with an 8-pack and things like this, rather than having gone through 9 months of intense training for a film and eating a really restricted diet and things like that. It's a challenging mindset to get in the right place, I think.
It is, and it's very convincing, isn't it? A lot of the information that you see online is shared in a way that is so believable and so convincing. And there was a recent study that Dublin University did. They carried out a study on 2,000 millennials and Gen Zs, and they found that 87% of them were using social media for nutrition advice. 57% adopted that advice, and 31% suffered negative health effects as a result of following that advice. So those stats are really, really shocking to me. They also looked at over 67,000 nutrition videos on TikTok, and they found that out of those 67,000, 2% were accurate. So that to me is so shocking, and it's so important to get advice from the right people. In the UK, if you're looking for advice, go to a registered nutritionist or a registered dietitian. They're both governed by external bodies, and it means you've got a code of ethics to adhere to. In terms of red flags, I don't know if this would be useful for people on social media. In my opinion, red flags to watch out for are things like, does this sound too good to be true? Because if it is, if it does, then it probably is. Are they telling you to eat huge amounts of a food group like protein, or are they telling you to restrict food groups? Are they saying that you're going to expect a really, really big weight loss in a short period of time? Do you have to spend a lot of money on something that they're promoting? Are they promising that it'll cure an illness? Do they classify foods as good or as bad? you can't do these things long term as well. So if somebody's advising something and you think, oh my God, I can't do that for very long, then that's probably a red flag that it's a fad. So there may be things to watch out for, because these people online are really convincing, and it is easy to get sort of caught up in some of the messages that they're giving out.
I think I've seen something. I think it's like a protein powder on a Facebook reel that I keep getting through, and it seems to be the most super dry mix that you make into a smoothie. And it says on there that, and it's targeted at women going through menopause. And, I think there was some stupid, ridiculous quote on there that somebody lost like, 10 pounds in 2 weeks or something by swapping and taking. And you think, seriously, I think like we've said, it's a red flag, too good to be true. Just eat healthily in the beginning, and we've got an abundance of even more recipes that will help you make those simple swaps, and as we've already said, to give you the right level of vitamins, minerals, the added fibre, because as Ruth has said, we're all guilty of not eating enough fibre. So if that's having an extra bowl of porridge, especially as we're coming into those darker, dreary mornings, it's all going to be better for you. It's not going to be bad for you by making those simple swaps and making sure that you have at least your 5 a day.
Yeah,
that is absolutely a really interesting point, actually, Zoe, because I don't know about anyone else, but I have really seen porridge demonized recently in social media. It's a carb, it's bad for you, it doesn't release energy slowly, and kind of real two sides of the coin. Personally, I love a bowl of porridge, but it makes you question. And we did have quite a few questions as well around balanced meal ideas. So Zoe, both people going through menopause, just generally, like, what's your thoughts on some good recipes for some really balanced meal ideas?
Like I say, we've got recipes for every meal occasion. So if you're sick of porridge, we've got Bircher recipes. So Bircher is overnight oats. So like we say, everybody's back to normal after COVID. Everybody's super busy. It's a juggle with, family life, working, other commitments. So, a simple bowl of overnight oats, which is just simply oats, low-fat yogurt and a splash of apple juice. Pop it in the fridge, mix it all together. And then you can add any derivative ingredients. So whether or not that is some chopped canned apple and a sprinkling of cinnamon. So you've got, like the appley crumbly type of flavours happening. Yeah. I've done a carrot cake one, so I've just added grated carrot. And while we talk about carrots, to add that level of fibre in, stop peeling carrots and parsnips.
Is it all in the skin? It's all about the skin.
Yeah, leave the skin on.
And you're just taking away all those wonderful nutrients and that added fibre.
And unnecessary food waste.
And your time.
Yeah.
But the carrot cake Bircher, grated carrot, some spices and some sultanas all mixed into the Bircher. We've got ideas around some simple soup recipes. So as we're going into those darker days, bulk cook a soup, freeze it in individual pots. So whether or not you're working in the office or working from home, quick to thaw and quick to heat. And again, you've got that hydration. You can add beans, pulses and lentils, lots of vegetables. Dinner-wise, tray bake cooking. I love a tray bake cooking. So for instance, for tomorrow's night dinner, I've already done tonight, so I type of plan what we are eating for a majority of the week. So then that can save cost of shopping and planning a little bit better. Saves time in the fact of coming home. And Annie, you said that question about, what we're going to have to eat tonight. I've bulk cooked. And it's sad as I say, Sunday mornings in the Gill household is bulk cook and freeze. So then come the evening, I can just take out a tray, pop it in the oven, and it cooks quite happily. Or, when we're busy and I travel away from home a lot, that my husband and the kids can take a tray of X, Y, and Z, or even if it's a cottage pie or lasagna, out the fridge, into the oven, and everybody's fed something really, it's homemade and hearty food. So we've got an abundance. And I think also in managing what we're eating, if you want a bit of indulgence and a bit of a treat of a pudding, don't not enjoy that. I think probably the best advice I can have or give is that if you're wanting something sweet and a bit of a sweet tooth, and again, we're getting into those seasons where you want a little bit of stodge, is to have a dessert and make sure you've got 50% of that fruit based. So the humble apple crumble. Use your canned fruit, mix your crumble topping, and again, we can share recipes. Mine, I add oats. So again, you've got a little bit of texture going through, but you've got more added fibre, and you've got quite a nice indulgent dessert. But predominantly, we've got more fruit than we have dessert. So with these clever hacks to again enjoy that indulgence of a dessert, but also making sure that you're getting vitamins and minerals in a very clever way.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of those recipes. I'm really enjoying the apple crumble theme, I have to say. It's nothing better on a rainy
And we
cold
did have that
day.
last night in the Guild House.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice. Jealous.
Apples from the tree.
Oh, even better. I'd have to say, I didn't realise that you could get tinned apple. I'm going to have to, because it's the peeling and the stewing that I find a little bit soul destroying because it takes such a long time. But I do absolutely love an apple crumble.
Open the tin, tip it out, make a little bit of crumble topping, pop it in the oven, and then, yeah, the real naughtiness is whether or not what you're going to add to it. If it's going to be cream, custard, or ice cream.
I do sometimes do almost like an apple crumble breakfast. So I'll have stewed apple, homemade granola, and then yogurt.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Good
we do
winter.
canned rhubarb as well, don't we, Zoe?
Yeah, I don't think you probably want that on staff sales because it's like 2.5 kilos.
It's a big one,
rhubarb.
yeah. It's a huge one.
That might
could
give you a
bulk
bit
cook,
of an
though.
upset stomach eating that, Mel.
Oh, I love a bit of rhubarb. Days ago. And we did have quite a few questions actually, particularly around menopause and weight management. So members saying that since they have started going through the menopause, they're starting to struggle with their weight, which has never really been a problem for them before. So there's the kind of, I suppose, the mental well-being aspect of it as well, of that kind of change in body type. But people are saying that they're still trying to be healthy, so they still eat healthily, they still exercise, they snack on fruit and veg, like for example carrot sticks and cucumber, but they're finding that their energy levels low, they still feel really hungry, and also it doesn't seem to be doing anything. They don't seem to be shifting the weight that they're trying to lose. So we also just talked a lot about balanced meals and ways that you can still keep healthy but also have a treat as well, because you don't want to feel like you're depriving yourself. But what's the thoughts around that, and anything people can do through nutrition to support menopausal well-being?
So that question around cucumber and carrot sticks and still feeling hungry, that to me would probably say that you're maybe not eating enough if you're still hungry. So it really is about going back to balance. Just have a look at your diet. Maybe skip a food diary, because people don't always remember what it is that they're eating, how often they're eating. Just have a little look at it and see how balanced it is. And if it's not as it should be, then you could maybe make some tweaks to do that. So we've mentioned this a couple of times, and make sure that you get your 5 a day. It's a really, really simple thing to do that could improve your diet drastically. So at least 5 portions of fruit and vegetables every day. Base your meals on starchy carbs. Carbohydrates aren't the enemy. Don't be afraid of them. We need more fiber. Fiber is good for your gut, but it also makes you feel full. So having things like wholemeal bread, whole wheat pasta, brown rice. If you're not keen, do 50-50 mixes of white and wholemeal, but it can help fill you up and give you that nutrient that we all need more of. Make sure you've got some protein with your meals, whether that comes from lentils, chickpeas, beans, eggs, fish, or meat. We're not saying that you need to completely remove meat from your diet. It's just more about eating less of it. But make sure that you do have a small amount of protein with your meals. You can also include protein-based snacks. It doesn't just have to be the carrot sticks or the cucumber sticks. So you could have things like yogurt or a handful of nuts, an apple dipped in peanut butter. That's quite a good source of protein. So it doesn't always have to be a fruit-based snack. Have a look at some protein snacks as well. Make sure you're having 2 portions of fish a week. One of them should be an oily fish. Oily fish contain fats that are good for your heart, good for brain health. Include some dairy food. So this is a really important a really important food group for women, because it's rich in calcium. And during the menopause, after the menopause, our calcium stores decline. So there's a risk of osteoporosis. So make sure that you're having some dairy foods. If you can't or you don't want to eat dairy, always choose a fortified dairy alternative. So you can get fortified spreads, you can get fortified milks, yogurts, that kind of thing. Make sure they've got that calcium added back into them. Be as active as you can. Set yourself a step goal. I know we talked about trackers and watches and all the rest of it, but sometimes you might not realize how inactive you are. Lots of us, me included, I have a desk-based job for most of the time. So unless I actively include a walk throughout the day before work or lunchtime after work, then I would barely move. And I've done it on days where you've got meetings all day and you look at your watch and you've done like 800 steps at 5 o'clock at night. And you don't mean to be, but you have to actively include that in your daily routine. And the last thing I would suggest, and this one is really, really important, it's imperative that you do some kind of resistance or strength training. So this is really important for women, but it's really important for people who want to change their body shape. So as we get older, we begin to lose muscle mass. It's just a normal part of the aging process, but that can have an impact on your metabolism. The more muscle that you have, the more calories that you burn. But don't be scared of doing weight training or anything like that. People think if I do that, they're going to like double in size and become really muscly. It is really, really hard to gain muscle mass, particularly for women. It's not an easy thing to do. But you need to include that as part of your routine so that you do have that more balanced approach to your body shape and that you maintain your muscle mass. You don't want it to decline. You could lift weights, you could do strength training that uses your own body as resistance. So things like push-ups, squats, lunges, something like Pilates is brilliant because you use your body weight and it is like a full body workout, really good to strengthen your core. But yeah, that one is a super important one. So if you're struggling with weight loss and you're not already doing so, you need to include some resistance training or some strength training into your routine.
That's great advice.
Can I add something into this
Go
conversation
for it.
about somebody questioning about how they feel hungry? I think that we're type of talking about eating the right food, but it's how we eat. So you need to be able to have that distraction to be able to enjoy your food. So if you eat slower, you are going to feel fuller. Whereas, if you're eating on the go, so whether or not you might have chosen what is deemed or perceived to be a healthy grab and go sandwich from the supermarket or from a coffee shop, wholemeal bread and whatever filling that may be. But if you're eating at fast paced and just stopping, or if you're sat in front of the TV and you've got a distraction of the TV and you're just shoveling away, what you need is the right environment to be able to eat and enjoy. So eating at a table, slow paced, that family conversation. So if you are those that type of, eat in front of the telly, make that swap of sitting at the table and having that conversation, because that slows down the speed of how you're consuming your food. So again, that you're going to enjoy it and you're going to feel fuller. So then you probably won't have that yanks of actually, do you know what, I've eaten this big bowl of lunch or dinner, but I'm still hungry. So why is that? So I think there's also the other flip of not only what you're eating, but how are you eating it too.
Yeah, and I think that can happen when you're desk-based. People do that. They eat their lunch while they're still working, don't they? Or maybe it's on a call or listening to a call, something like that. And you're not actually focused on, you haven't moved away from your desk. You're not sitting down, like you say. Maybe it's just not so mindful about the food patterns and habits that you've got.
So
good
I
point.
think it's just about the environment of which you're eating. So, for many people that are now, back out and you might be commuting on the train into Covent Garden as an example, going to grab something quick for breakfast or at the end of the day. It's just about thinking about how are you eating, because I think that's also going to make a huge impact.
Yeah, that is so true. That is fantastic advice. It's so easy, isn't it, when you're on the go and you're busy? I totally resonate. I think I've eaten my lunch and I'm still starving. Like, why am I still hungry?
Because you haven't had, mentally, you've not had the time to be able to process the fantastic food that you've got and you're trying to enjoy.
And it's that connection piece, isn't it? Like you say, that's our purpose as a business. And actually we do, as people, we do really connect over food, and it's taking that time to have the conversation, like you say, Zoe, like even if if you have got children at home, it's that. And when we eat together as a family, I love that. You ask the kids how their day was, what they're grateful for, what they learned, and you kind of get so much more out of it than when you're rushing through the meal, and it's more of you're eating kind of just for the sake of it rather than to enjoy it and make it an experience. That's really true. I think the thing I would build as well, just from my personal experience, is what you were saying, Ruth, about the resistance training. I'm really passionate about exercise for well-being. I find it really helpful for my mental well-being, and things that we hear a lot from members, particularly if they're going through menopause, is around a loss of confidence. And one of my major bugbears is women not being supported, particularly in a gym environment, to, for example, understand how to lift weights and do that safely.
Yeah.
So my advice would absolutely be, if you're struggling with that and it's something that you want to start, that you go and engage with a professional, whether that's a personal trainer, whether there's somebody that that lifts weights, and get them to help you, or get somebody in the gym. That I have actually been in a gym before and heard an instructor say to a woman, well, that's the free weights area over there, but you don't want to go over there because that's where all the men train. I'll show you where the treadmills are. I was like, I'll show you.
Oh gosh,
I just thought that's such terrible
that's
advice, that you really need to
awful.
find someone that
Yeah,
you trust. It's so important.
before I went to uni, I did a sports science diploma and I worked in a gym for 2 years, but I worked in a ladies only gym. And without fail, every sort of program that I wrote for people that included weights, which was everyone, they were all like, oh no, I can't do that because I'm going to get too muscly, I'm going to bulk up. And, it doesn't work like that. It is really, really, really hard to gain muscle, but you need to do what you can with what you've got, and don't be afraid of it. Don't be scared. Ask for help. And if a gym is saying that area is not for you, then walk out.
Walk away.
Go to a
That's not
different
good.
gym. Definitely
Yeah,
go to a
go
different
somewhere
gym.
else.
It's that whole
Yeah,
mindset about training for the future as well, isn't it? Like if you're doing
absolutely.
lifts, if you think when you're older, in terms of your bone health, if you do lifts
Mm.
now that involve lifting weights up off the floor, then when you're older, likely it is you'll still be able to lift up a couple of bags of shopping. And it's like building that training for your
Yeah,
future body, isn't it? It's really
absolutely. Yeah,
important.
and reducing the risk of injuries later on.
Mm.
The more strength that you've got, the less likely you are to have a fall. And people who have falls when they're older tend to break a hip, and
Mm.
that can lead to other complications. So yeah, it's about doing stuff now, like you said, to future-proof it in the next sort of 20 to 50 years, however long.
And I think there's something in that in terms of future proofing around menopause. And for those that are maybe in their early stages of perimenopause, which I type of fit into that bracket, is about sharing our knowledge, our own individual experiences as a group, so that for those younger members that are joining, that they can take the advice and experiences of others. But it's also in the fact of changing your mindset around nutrition and food, so that when you hit that crunch point and you are deep within menopause, that you've already made those adjustments to your lifestyle that should maybe help some of those symptoms.
Yeah.
So I'm really passionate about getting as many younger members of the business into our group, just for that very reason. If you can make those switches of maybe having birch-cereal porridge for your breakfast rather than grab a buttery croissant every morning and the most fat-filling latte, if you can make those changes now, that when you come to that time, your body's already prepared in a better way.
That's
Yeah,
really true.
brilliant.
Healthy habits for the future.
Yeah.
Definitely. So in that theme, just a couple of quick fire questions to finish, just around creating healthy habits. So the first question is around sleep. So again, lots of fact versus fiction, supplements to help you sleep. Does magnesium do what it says on the tin? Is that going to help you? What any advice that you would give around sleep, creating healthy sleep habits, and any supplements to take?
So sleep is really person dependent, isn't it? So I'm a really good sleeper. My husband isn't. We have very similar habits though. So I think it just depends on you as an individual. You need to be active. If you're not tired, then your body probably isn't going to want to rest as much. You need that good balance of nutrients that all help you prepare for sleep mode. I think you touched on magnesium in that question. So yes, there is some evidence that shows that people who don't eat enough magnesium or don't have enough food that contains magnesium can have disturbed sleep. But by eating the balanced diet and going back to basics, which we've touched on a few times, therefore you should get those nutrients. So if you're eating well, there probably is less need for a supplement. But it depends on you as an individual. It depends on your situation. It depends on your diet. Do you have allergies? There's certain food groups that you can't eat because of an intolerance or something. So you have to really look at it from an individual perspective, and nobody's the same. And I can't say that everybody needs a supplement or everybody doesn't, because it's a really individual thing. There's some key instances where supplements play a useful role. So if you're trying to get pregnant or during pregnancy, folic acid supplementation is recommended. Calcium supplementation would be good for people who are either at risk of osteoporosis or already have it. If you follow a vegan diet, then you probably need to take a vitamin B12 supplement, because that is a nutrient that you only get from animal products. So you probably would need supplementation there. If you follow a vegetarian diet, which would mean you wouldn't eat fish, then you might need an omega-3 supplement. You can get omega-3s from plant-based sources, but they're a lot harder for your body to convert into the equivalent of what you would find in fish, and you would have to eat a lot of it. So a supplement might be useful there. The part of the world that we live in the UK, we don't get much sunlight, and that's where we get most of our vitamin D from. Therefore, vitamin D supplementation is recommended for people in the UK, particularly through the winter months. So we're coming up to that now. So roughly from October through to March, we should be taking a vitamin D supplement. But they're all really person specific. So it depends on you and your situation. And if you're ever unsure, just ask for help. I don't mind supporting people with those sorts of questions, whether they think they need a supplement somewhere along the line.
Can I just add into that as well around sleep? There's a couple of other elements about the time that you eat, in terms of when your body's then into that slow down mode, ready for preparation for sleep. So there's no good, eating dinner or grabbing something from the takeaway on the way home and thinking that you're going to be able to instantly shut down and stop. So try and eat your evening meal as early as possible, so that helps your body to be able to digest those food groups. And again, as Ruth says, it's all down to individual. But for me, my biggest one is that I don't take my mobile phone to bed. Do you know what? That stays downstairs. I don't need to be responding at 2 o'clock in the morning when it dings. So I think it's about just individual habits and routine that's really important, that helps certainly aid my sleep.
That is great advice. It's that more kind of holistic sleep health, isn't it? Rather than just taking a supplement, it's about really thinking about your sleep environment. And like you say, Ruth, everyone's different. Like some people find having a TV in the bedroom really distracting. If you don't have a TV, it's very much just your sleep space. So very much that kind of, what's your perfect sleep recipe, I suppose, as an individual, that's really important.
Yeah.
I suppose final very quick question, but before we close, is just, you were describing there with some really great suggestions for supplements that people might want to take at kind of different stages and depending on their personal circumstances. Is there anything else that you'd add to that? Say, for example, there's been questions around, should people take iron supplements when they're having their period, before the menopause? Anything else that you'd add to that around supplements?
I think some people could benefit from an iron supplement. It depends on you. Some people who have heavy periods where you're losing a lot of blood, iron is transported around your body in your bloodstream, so therefore you might need it. But maybe look at symptoms first before you just presume. So do you feel tired? Are you lacking in energy? Are you quite pale? They're all sort of signs of iron deficiency. But if you've got any concerns around that, you could see a GP and they would do a blood test, and then you would find out if you were. You can't always presume, because symptoms can be of other things that you might not necessarily know about. but red meat is a good source of iron, but you can also find iron in loads of different plant-based sources as well. So again, it comes back to the balance, doesn't it? If you're eating well and you're eating a variety in a diverse diet, then potentially that's not the issue. It could be something that's a genetic thing or something just to do with you as an individual, but always get it checked out by a GP if you suspect something.
Right, thank you. There you go. We have looped right back round to frozen spinach.
Yeah, exactly.
Frozen spinach is the answer. I think just final thing to say on that, if you are a colleague listening from GB and you do need to get an appointment with your GP and you might be struggling with that, particularly as we head into winter and they get busier, that you can access a virtual GP via Help at Hand, which is our employee assistance programme. So you can find all the information on People Hub, or you can ask your line manager. Really easy to access, 24/7, fantastic benefit for the business. So definitely check that out if you're struggling to get a GP appointment. Well, thank you so much, Ruth and Zoe, for your time today. I have absolutely loved our chat. Quite frankly, I could stay here all morning. And I'm definitely adding some tinned apple and some oily fish to my shopping list for this week.
Not together.
Really... Not together, no. Yeah. Apple sauce does not go with salmon, that is for sure. But also really looking forward to seeing some of your recipes, Zoe, and maybe mixing up the list of things that we make, particularly heading into the new season. So thank you both again so much for sharing your knowledge and your expertise this morning. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.